Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be starting a new series where I'll be reviewing video games that I've played, and I'll be reviewing them in the different ways of story, gameplay, additional content, as well as graphics. I'd say at least story, graphics, and gameplay are the most important features of a game. I'll mostly be doing single player games because they mostly incorporate these three things most, but I'll also review online games, and they will be mostly shorter videos with less information. So to begin, I have chosen The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt to review today, which I think is one of the better or even the best narrative RPG ever made. And I'd say it qualifies for one of the best games of this decade because of how great and well made it is. To begin, we have the gameplay. So the combat in the game, I'd say that's a 7 out of 10 because it could be improved. It's not very incredibly fluid as some other games, and however, it still incorporates signs, and it is quite, I'd say it's decent, so that's why I gave it a 7 out of 10. It's also important to remember throughout this review that this game was made 5 years ago, and I'll be comparing it to games that are made today. So games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla and Call of Duty and games like those. Then we have the items or the inventory, and I'd say this is a very well made part of the game. There are an incredible amounts of items you can collect: swords, armor, just collectibles, books, potions. Well, I'll get into potions later. And these all help to make the game better. So I'd say that I'd give it an 8 out of 10 because even though there are an extreme amount of things you can collect, most swords are still very similar to each other, and most types of armor are still incredibly similar to each other. You have light, medium, and heavy, but they are pretty much quite similar anyway. Then we have, so I give that an 8 out of 10. Then we have the RPG elements. So these are things like crafting and character building and alchemy in this game. I'd give this a 9 out of 10 because it has a lot of good features, like, for example, the mutations and the abilities and the crafting and the alchemy, which help make the game a lot better. So that's why I gave that a 9 out of 10. Moving on, we have the graphics. I'd say the environmental graphics of the game are a 7 out of 10. Now here it's important to remember that this game was made 5 years ago, and I'm comparing it to games of modern standards. So that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 instead of higher, but if I made this 5 years ago, it would be an 11 out of 10 because the graphics are still very good. The visual effects of the game are not, I'd say they are not up to par with the environmental graphics, because as we can see at the bottom left, even though it's bad quality, the fire is not very detailed as in many other games, so that's why I gave it a 6 out of 10. The interface, however, is very good. I'd say it matches the whole vibe of the game and gives a lot of information without making it too intrusive, such as the minimap, the potions, and everything else. That's why I gave it a 9 out of 10. Moving on to story, I'd say the main story of The Witcher is very good. Even though it can get a little bit long-winded, which is why I gave it a 9 out of 10 instead of, for example, 10 out of 10. However, the side stories and quests of the game are so good. It's incredible. For example, the Bloody Baron quest, where no ending is truly bad, or no ending is truly good, and it's so good. All the side stories and quests in the game are incredible, as well as this so that's why I give it an 11 out of 10. Now, I won't usually give things 11 out of 10 because it isn't really fair to other games, but I think in this game in particular it deserves these high scores. As for the environmental storytelling, I'd say it's very good as well. Just the amount of detail that you put into this entire game and making it as good as possible is incredible. That's why I gave it an 11 out of 10. Moving on, we have the DLCs and expansions. Now, the CD Projekt Red, the game maker behind The Witcher 3, released 16 free DLCs for everyone who bought the game, which I think is incredible, especially when you're comparing it to games or video game companies like Ubisoft or Blizzard, and they're just not up to par compared to this. As well as this, the expansions that have been added to the game are so incredibly good. The Blood and Wine expansion that we can see in bottom left adds an entire new world to discover, with very sharp contrasts to the usual gloomy Witcher terrain we're used to. And the Hearts of Stone expansion brings an incredible story that was incredibly well crafted and beautifully made. So that's why I'm giving the expansions a 12 out of 10. In conclusion, I'd say the gameplay of The Witcher is 8 out of 10, which matches what I gave it here. I'd say the graphics are an 8 out of 10 because they're still very good nowadays, even though the visual effects don't match it. The story is incredible, as I said earlier, and the additional content is stellar. That's why I'm giving this game a final score of 9.5 out of 10, which it will probably be one of the highest scores I will ever give a game, because it is so good. So yeah, that's all I have to say today, and a new video will be hopefully up quite soon on another game. I'm thinking maybe Assassin's Creed Black Flag, or Watch Dogs, or yeah, I don't know, Just Cause maybe. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.